Hello and welcome to From the Be-All End. I'm Simon Evans, and yes, we're here still basking in the glory of that 5-0 win at Plymouth Argyle, but also plenty of other things to talk about as well. Thank you very much for your feedback on the little mini-pod instant reaction that we did after that Plymouth game. I think it merits it, a 5-0 away win, especially 5-0 up at half-time. That doesn't happen very often, does it? I'm joined by Andrew Greaves, Chris Broden, Justin Conley, and Liam Vizeh is with us to give us his perspective on what's been going on at Turf Moor. Good to have you back, Liam.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Happy to be on, especially after a massive win away.
Yeah, let's start off with that. I mean, Justin, we don't get many games where we win 5-0 and we're 5-0 up at half-time and utterly dominate in that fashion. What were your feelings about that game? Is it just a total outlier, or is it a sign of something, do you think?
I thought that second half was rubbish, wasn't it? Awful stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think it is an outlier. I think you said it on the mini pod. It has been coming, that sort of thing. I think we've been saying for a while now it might just click and someone's going to get a hiding, and that was it. I mean, to be fair, it was as much about them as it was about us, I think. But because they were really poor, weren't they? Especially in that first half, and I think they only really picked up in the second because we took our foot off the gas a little bit. But to dismantle anybody in 45 minutes is no mean feat. To be honest with you, I can't think of any negatives to throw on it, apart from the fact that it would have been nice to score another 5 in the second half, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been nice to boost that goal difference a bit more. Liam, how did you see that game? Because there were some outstanding individual displays in there as well, weren't there?
Yeah, I agree with Justin that it feels like it has been something that has been coming for a while. That just a bit of luck, and to get that early goal that hasn't really been happening with us in many games in recent weeks and months. I'm really happy for Josh Laurent to get his first goal of the season as well. He's been very deserving of that, and to get 2, of course, is a bonus. And you kind of know that the team you're up against is really poor when even Josh Cullen bags one as well. So all around, all I really wanted to make it even a more perfect performance is if Lyle Foster bagged in that game as well. It does kind of put him off the mark because it's been a long time since he scored for us now. So all around, I mean, the thing is, you can't tell, but even for a game against a bottom table side, you still feel a bit nervous because of the games that happened the day prior of the big wins against, like Sunderland at Derby. So there were pressure on the line there, and it seems that when the pressure comes on, we still are more than happy just to pull out. I mean, the thing is, what you could tell with that game is the players that has the know-how, the kind of the experience, Josh Brownhill or like Connor Roberts, Cullen, you can see it so clear of they just read the game so well. And the amount of times that, for example, Brownhill would go and just intercept the ball, know exactly where they're going to pass it off to, was just damning to see. So all around, perfect performance. I just wish that Foster bagged in that game as well.
Yeah, he would have done him good, wouldn't he? But he's looking more back to the sort of level that we'd been hoping for, and seems to have fitted in quite well on the left. Greaves, another player who I watched again the goals this morning, because you're going to do, aren't you, when you have a game like that? Watch them a couple of times on the tube, and Josh Lawrence bursts from midfield. That's a sign of his game that we've seen little glimpses of in the past, but not, and a bit of pace as well. Either that or Plymouth were really slow.
Yeah, I think we mentioned Laurent last night on the mini pod, and I'm glad Liam's mentioned him again, because I think he has deserved a goal, and I think his interview was quite interesting today on the club website, saying he thought he'd missed a few sitters and perhaps should have had a couple of goals already. I was trying to recall those sitters. I don't think he's had kind of sitters to miss, but I think he's a brilliant signing. Somebody pointed out, I think it was the Burnley Way on Twitter, less than £1 million. You know what I mean? I made the point, not every signing has to be big name, big money, glamour signing. A lot of Stoke fans would have probably given him a piggyback to Turf Moor. He was one of those kind of signings of, oh, we're glad to get rid kind of thing. But actually, we've said a few times, he actually makes that midfield tick a little bit. He's got a bit more drive, a bit more urgency than perhaps Cullen has at times, when Cullen might spin on the ball, turn backwards, sideways pass. Laurent, he's always trying to get forward. And he was superb, and a real kind of, I think a bit of a statement win, really. I mean, a lot of teams I know a lot of teams have taken plenty of goals off Plymouth, but, when Sheffield United have won the night before, Sunderland have won, Leeds have got a bit of a home banker against a Norwich team that don't travel that well. That is pressure, because you kind of think, you know what, if we don't get a win here, we're suddenly 5-6 points off that top two as opposed to being in touching distance. So, yeah, big win, and yeah, maybe an outlier, maybe not. I think Foster the only disappointment really, because I think again he worked his socks off, and I think he's looking a lot fitter than we've seen him. I don't know if he's ever been fully fit.
Looks a bit leaner, doesn't he?
He does, yeah, and I think that's part of it. When he, the start of the Premier League season before he had his issues, he looked pretty fit, he looked pretty dynamic, but he's so strong. And I think Chris mentioned last night about the hold-up play from Fleming. We're just seeing all of these players just hit that kind of next level, which the coaches and Scott Parker's done, I think, now we're starting to see it pay off. And it is a bit of a war of attrition, is the Championship. You've got to have consistency. Consistently, defensively, we are consistent. We've said before, we score, we ain't losing, because we're not going to concede very many. But it's that kind of, can we then get that consistency in the forward play? And I think now, hopefully, this kind of 5 goals, we out-reply, good performance. Yeah, Leeds on Monday, big task, big game. But can we start to take some of those things that we've been putting into practice over the last couple of games into a complete home performance? Because that's the next kind of frontier into it. Can we get these home performances to match some of the away performances?
Yeah, give the crowd on the turf something to cheer. They could really do with a 5-goal win at some stage. Why not against Leeds United on Monday? But Chris, tactically, it's interesting, isn't it, that we've talked a lot about maybe being a little bit too cautious. A lot of fans have been frustrated by what some people are calling like a negative style of play. But if you look at it, if Fleming is playing basically as a 9, you've got Foster out on the left, who's a forward. We've got Jadon Anthony out on the right, who is an out-and-out winger. And then from the midfield last night, you have Brownhill and Laurent pushing forward. There's really only like Cullen sitting there. I mean, that tactically, on paper, that doesn't look like a negative way of playing football, does it?
No, not at all. Like you say, you've got, the striker who is our main threat in the Premier League on the left-hand side. You've got he's developing into an out-and-out number 9 in Big Z and Fleming. Anthony, who's, arguably our greatest attacking threat. You've got your top goal scorer breaking from midfield. Laurent gets 2, and Cullen gets his goal as well. That's it. We play with such control, and I thought last night for me away from home we seem to play quicker. You have sort of spells where we sort of take the sting out of games, and you can just sort of kill the tempo of a game, like at Blackburn when they started and they had a spell and we just got a grip and just negated them completely, and you're just like wondering then can we create that moment, and could have had a penalty and then you create the moment and score what proves to be the winner. You can't fault him. See, in terms of like getting bodies on the pitch who are capable of causing sides problems. And even like Hannibal, we say he's not one for scoring, many goals from his position. He don't, get many assists, but he showed against Watford he can get involved in that side of things, and he's not a negative footballer, Hannibal. He brings you that energy and that sort of intensity that helps establish control in games as well. So it's moving the ball quicker, isn't it? I think last night we were able to move it quicker, and we looked far better for doing so. As Justin said, probably a lot to do with the calibre of opponents. But, I'm thinking, we'll probably talk about Jonjo Shelvey later on, and you're looking at him he can pass the ball as good as anything. It's just his fitness that's largely let him down in his career, and the odd sort of moment where he's maybe fallen out with a manager or had a sending off. But if you can get him sort of established and breaking lines with the quality of his passing, switching play quickly and accurately as he does. Again, the switches of play against Sunderland last week when we were killing him in behind their fullbacks, just couldn't quite take advantage of that. there is attacking intent. It's that we've got complete and utter control of games, and it's about getting bodies into. But how many bodies we were getting into the box at all times last night? It was like the first couple of games where we were sort of flooding the opposition area, and we've not really seen that much of the time since. So it's more of that, but retaining that balance that's given us one of the greatest defensive records of all time.
Well, we'll get on to Jonjo Shelvey in a minute, but I just wanted to ask Liam really what you think of this season so far under Scott Parker. What have been your overall impressions of what we've seen?
Okay, this is where I may annoy some people, I guess, because I've not really spoken too much online about it. The thing is, maybe because of my own personal life, I'm getting older, I got 2 daughters. When it comes to, and because it's a bit harder to watch the games, I've generally not watched as much of Burnley this year as what I really should have. If it's of course, you can't really compare us too much to the company team because it is completely different ways of playing the game and 2 different completely squads, basically. But when it comes to a weekend when I could be with my children, and I used to always make sure I got time planned to be there to watch the game, there's been so many games this year, predominantly at home, with 7-0 draws this year, that there's been times that I'm just like, you know what, I'd rather just spend the entire day with my daughters. So there has been times that I've just said, you know what, at home we have, let's say, Watford at home. I didn't watch it, and that's one of the best performances we've had all year. So this year, I have at times felt a bit, like, is it really worth putting 2 hours when I could be with my daughters? So, Blackburn's helped out a lot. I went to the away game for that one, beat them 1-0 as always. So, like, I have a connection, of course, with the club, obviously, but with these players, there has been times that I've kind of felt a bit kind of like what. I think that what I kind of put it down to is, what are we actually looking forward to? And that is, when we actually get promoted next year, if we do, what am I even looking forward to? Because I can't imagine this team being much better in the Premier League than what we were last time. But by play, I'd say we are a worse team. But maybe the way we play and how we set up, we may be more prepared to stay in game, sticking, games more predominantly away from home because of a defensive record, and we may have more of a chance. I don't know, but all I know is if we go up next year, I don't think many of these players can cut it because we've seen it time and time and time again. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to enjoy the ride. I'm going to enjoy the wins, but there's still that lingering thing on the back of my mind is, okay, but let's say we do go up. Are we just going to go through another year of absolute dross and hell and just suffering? Because the Premier League is hell. So that's the thing. I want to enjoy it and enjoy the ride because there was the saying that, the journey's much more, the journey's better than the destination, basically. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, because under Scott Parker, I don't know how we'll set up next year to be better than last time with the players that we have. And will we be back? We're going to see, because what we're seeing in terms of what players he likes, I don't know if it seems like it's much more of a safe pair of hands, players that he's been with before. We're seeing Jonjo Shelvey and, Ashley Barnes as our only signings this window. So that's just kind of where I am at with this, with the season right now. Even though we're doing really well, there's still that kind of, okay, but what's the future going to look like? Is it just going to be hell again? So that's just always in the back of my mind.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I mean, it's a couple of interesting things. That you do have your priorities right, though, Liam. That I do have to say that. You're right. I mean, if it's Championship football or spending time with your daughters at the weekend, you're making the right choices there, because you can always catch up with games, can't you? But Justin, on a couple of those points that Liam's raising, do you feel? Because I was thinking about this last night. Are we in a better shape with Parker to go up and survive if we do go up? And I'm getting ahead of ourselves, aren't we? But there is I feel like there's more of a foundation here that's realistic for the Premier League than there was with Company, where we were believing in a dream that was never going to come true. But I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we went up into the Premier League last time completely, well, more or less dismantled the squad and brought a load of young players in and went on this crazy experiment of trying to condition a load of teenagers to be successful, whatever success means in the Premier League. For us at that time, it meant staying in it. And it just didn't work out, did it? I mean, I did sort of think if that season had been maybe 10 games longer than it actually was, we were getting a little bit better towards the end of it, and we might have scraped it if we'd had a little bit more time. It's a totally different proposition now, isn't it? It's not a team full of teenagers. We've got the odd one or two here and there, but he seems to be filling it more with the seasoned pros, or at least bringing in that little bit of experience that can help, off the pitch. We forget sometimes that we only see these lads for sort of 2-3 hours a week. They spend every day with each other. And signings like the Ashley Barnes signing, he's not necessarily going to spend that much time on the pitch, but his contribution behind the scenes, same would go with Jonjo Shelvey as well. I think it's kind of they bring that experience to having been in these situations, and they can offer the guidance to the players that haven't been in those situations. So I think that the addition of that kind of experience, even if it's not felt on the pitch, it will be felt in the club in general. And I think you're right to say that we might not have a talented squad, as talented a squad as we had under Vincent Kompany in that Premier League season, but it certainly seems more capable of weathering storms than that side was. Occasionally we crumbled, didn't we, conceding goals early in games and then never looking like we're going to get back into it. This team doesn't seem to have that same sort of character, does it? It seems a bit more resilient. And I think that will stand us in good stead. But like you said, we're getting ahead of ourselves now. There's a long way to go between now and the end of the season. And I think it's already clear that this season isn't going to be like the season where we ran away with the league. There's basically 4 teams in it, of which obviously we are one. But I think all signs point towards us being well capable and having the tools to do the job. I sort of agree a little bit with Liam about the performances so far. There's been too many games this season where I've sort of felt like I was nodding off, or felt really like a nagging sensation in the back of my mind that there's something better than this that I should be doing instead of spending my time watching this. But then, that's when you're a football fan and you follow one team, that you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and it makes games like the one this week on Wednesday all the better when you've sat through some of the less than inspirational football we've seen so far.
Breezy, do you feel that we would be in a better shape with this team than we were with VK's?
Again, I think it's one of those, isn't it? I think we're in a better shape manager-wise from a pragmatic point of view. We called on Vincent to be more pragmatic last year, this kind of, put your personal ego to one side and ultimately, keep this club in the division and be more pragmatic and things like that. And I think Parker's probably a bit further down, he is obviously a bit further down the journey than Vincent Kompany. But I think we mentioned last week, what I like about Parker is he talks a lot about the journey he's been on, basically, realising his mistakes. And we're going to come on to another manager probably in a little bit around, managers who are perhaps a little bit rash with their decision-making and things. So I think Kompany at some point will have to learn from his inadequacies and his failings. And I think Parker's done that. So in that respect, yes. From a squad point of view, it's as Liam says, what have we got? Ashley Barnes, Jonjo Shelvey. It's not quite Dale Stevens, but it's there's nothing to get excited about, and I'm not excited about Morgan Whittaker either. I have to just put that on record. But yeah, I think we are, because I think we have a manager who knows the division, who is somebody who will be pragmatic. He's really not an ego man like Kompany is to an extent. So it will be about preserving the club rather than himself. So I think from that point of view, we've got the right man at the helm. But I also think Alan Pace has a decision to make if it's not going well at Christmas, which he refused to do under Kompany because he was, the most beautiful girl in town, and he was never going to get there and never going to sack him. But there we go. And just on Liam's point of prioritising spending time with his kids. On a Saturday, it's Burnley Football Club or Boundary Mill, so I don't have that same problem. So there we go.
I think for me, the main issue is the fact that the quality between the Championship and Premier League is just so, like, I'll be honest here, other than 4 or 5 teams in this division, the league is gash when it comes to the quality difference. Blackburn are 6th. They're in the playoffs. They are awful. They're generally so bad. And they are 6th. And they're always, well, other than last year, but they've been in playoffs for the last couple of years. It's such a massive gap. That's why you can't really judge it. My main issue is I'm looking at the reason why we are where we are is because of a defence. Our defence has kept us in games and has turned draws in that could have been losses, and that we've got a 1-0 win and they kept us from not conceding goals, right? The main issue is I just don't know if our defence can even stand a chance in the Premier League. Can CJ Iguodala take a step up? Can Roberts take a step up? Well, we've seen it 2-3 times now that he can't. Same thing goes to the likes of I don't think Humphreys can. Perez definitely can't for me. So it's just a case of, is it just a Stev? And then also Trafford, I love CJ Iguodala, completely blown my expectations, but it is such a massive jump. And is he ready? We don't know. I was completely sure thing that Josh Cullen would be completely and guaranteed that could just stroll into Premier League and look like he belongs there. And we saw that last year, that jump is just too big. So that's why I kind of am hesitant to really get too excited. And that's the main issue. It's just the massive difference of goal for quality. You can't really judge where you really are at in comparison to, let's say, a simple club like a Brighton mid-table or even a Palace. So, yeah, that's my main thing.
It is true.
It's expectation, though, isn't it? I thought Owen Coyle could keep Burnley up, and I still think had he stayed at the club and not gone to Bolton, he'd have kept Burnley up and we'd have got the wins necessary. But we were on the crest of a wave with him. We were on the crest of a wave with Vincent. Did I think we'd stay up in 2014? No, and we didn't. It came down the year after. Did I think we'd stay up in 2016? Probably not. And they found a way to grind out. They were terrific at home. And it took them till the penultimate away game to get an away win that season. But they got the sufficient points. There's different ways to skin a cat in the Premier League, and I'm not saying that should this team go up, they could do it. But and different players, you just do not know how they will adapt. I mean, we all thought, oh, great, we're going to see Zarori and Benson in Premier League, and company didn't think they were good enough. And players that you expect to flourish maybe don't. Players that you don't expect to flourish maybe do. And it's a strange old thing, but you just don't know, do you? Like I say, Trafford's got another year down the line. He's better off in that regard, and Roberts can do a job at that level. Depending on Son's development. And so I don't think there's a lot of people have it in for Perez. I don't think Perez is always as bad as it's made out to be. And Humphrey, the England under 21 defender is getting better all the time. You've got so many options at centre back. And again, what do we bring in? But we would go up thinking, do you know what? As long as this team has a right good crack at it, we don't think they're good enough, but we'll back them to the hilt. Then you accept that. I mean, it's last year when we thought we're going to do slightly better, I think, and then to dismantle the team and play with a team of strangers that nobody neither knew or cared for all season. That's when you end up having a miserable year.
Really.
I do wonder as well whether the issue with teams who go up is not necessarily personnel but systems. Like our problem last year was the system and the style of play that Vincent wanted. Southampton's problems are largely not necessarily personnel. Yes, I agree 100% with Liam. The gap between the Championship and the Premier League has never been bigger. But it's this insistent on these managers who suddenly think it's a dick swinging contest and they've all got to play like Pep and they've all got to do this. And, I think McKenna, to a certain extent, notwithstanding last week's defeat against City, he's learning to be a bit more pragmatic. They're starting to pick up 1 or 2 results, and of the promoted clubs, they look like the ones that have the best chance of staying up. If he keeps them up, it'll be a mixture of getting the best out of a much poorer squad than anyone else, barring perhaps, the teams below him in the Premier League. But I look at people like Wolves who are struggling. You look at Man United who are struggling. It's systems. A lot of it is stubbornness from managers not to be pragmatic, not to change system. I again, I think Parker, if he has learned his lessons from the Fulham and the very brief kind of Bournemouth spell in the Premier League, I think if he surrounds himself with players who he believes will do a job and, go that extra mile, and he talks a lot about these players are going to like deep places, dark places to make sure that defensive record. Nobody last year was going to a dark place to try and keep Burnley in the Premier League. Let's be honest.
We were watching it.
we were. The dark place was fucking Sadler's Yard or whatever that shitty little walkway at the side of the cricket club's called, to get back to the bloody car in the pissing down rain. But, Parker talks a lot about this going deep. And a lot of these players, at Southampton, things like that, they're being asked to play systems that they're just not capable of playing. And a lot of the Championship there's a lot of good players in the Championship, but it's this, and we've talked about it before, this disease of Pep, this kind of, everyone's got to play this certain way, everyone's got to piss about at the back, everyone's got to keep possession, everyone's got to do this. You know what, just play football. Play to your strengths. You know what, we're never going to have the fastest and best midfield. We're never going to have a 20-goal-a-season Premier League striker. We're never going to have this, we're never going to have that, we're never going to have the other. What we can do is play to our strengths, and it becomes a bit muscle memory. The reason we're so good at the back is because we're not used to conceding goals, because we're used to, if Egan Riley probably had one of his poorer games last night, a little bit sloppy at times, and that's really harsh saying that. I agree with Chris about Pires. I think he gets a lot of stick, but, again, I think he's much better than he gets credit for. It's all these kind of, I think you've got to think about systems rather than personnel sometimes. And I think it's really, and 100%, this squad is not, on paper, good enough for the Premier League. But can they go that 10% extra than three other squads and make up for it with hard work? You talk to anyone, they always say, hard work is, 80% of the, 80% of the game. You've got to work hard. If you're not Messi, you're not, Arsenal or Chelsea or whoever, you've got to work harder. And we just didn't work hard enough last year. That was, the be-all and end-all of it.
Well, you see, hard work beats talent if talent don't work hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's move on to some ins and outs at Turf Moor. There's been a little bit of business done and some of the usual rumours we can expect as well. So let's switch our minds from that fantastic victory and to fantasising about what it'd be like in a division that we're not in yet, and have a think about players on their way in and way out. Right, so the first bit of business done since Ashley Barnes' arrival was Jonjo Shelvey coming in on a deal until the end of the season. Been training with the club for about 10 days beforehand, keeping his fitness up after leaving his club in Turkey. And his club in Turkey was called Eyüpspor, which must be a Yorkshire franchise in the Turkish league. But Shelvey coming in, and let's have a listen to what Scott Parker had to say when he was talking about how that deal came about and what he hopes for it.
It suits both parties at this present moment in time. From my side, obviously, Jonjo coming in last week, training with us, instantly see his quality, a guy that's had many years in and around it, still 32, so he's not at the right end of he's not at the back end of where he is. He's still got plenty left in him. Went off to Turkey and he's come back. And I think we've seen, or certainly I've seen in 3 or 4 training sessions, and what I know of him and watching from him from afar, the quality he possesses. And I think he helps us. I think he probably brings a little bit of something different to maybe what we've got in them positions. He brings experience and something to prove as well, coming back into England. So I'm delighted to have Jonjo with us now, and obviously needs some training now, get him up to speed, and hopefully he can have a big impact on the current squad, really.
What do you make of that, Justin? What do you think of that deal?
Yeah, well, it's another one of those, isn't it? It's a bit of a no-brainer, really. If he's seen him up close and he thinks he can make a contribution, then why not give him a contract till the end of the season? He's got a lot to prove, like as Parker said there. But not only that, he's also going to be playing for his future, isn't he, with the club? If he can contribute to getting us back up into the Premier League. He's got experience at that level as well, so I might be able to offer something there. I quite like that. He's got lots of reasons to, really dig in and try and make a difference, not just on the pitch, again, like I said before, but also on the training ground. A lot of experience, a lot of big games played. Always seemed when you're playing to me like a bit of a walking red card potential, but you take that with a lot of players because of what they contribute in other ways. I can't see him getting in the side at the moment, though, to be honest,
No.
even if he is fit. But, a little bit of depth in those positions, especially especially now Masengo's gone out on loan. I can't fault it, really. I think, it suits everybody and it fills a little hole that we've got, and potentially it could be a very canny move.
Liam, is it a no-brainer, do you think, or is this not the type of player we should be signing if we're building a team to go up to Premier League?
No, I agree that it's a no-brainer. He's on a free. Wages may be higher than maybe some of the younger players, but it won't be too insane, I'd imagine. He's got abundance of experience, and he is a player that has undoubted quality. So I can't really see any fault of really bringing him in. Got no issue with this at all. And if it works out, fantastic. If it doesn't work out, well, it's just a short-term contract, isn't it? So is it 6 months or is it 18 months?
I think it's 6 months till the end of the season, yeah?
So literally nothing to lose. And therefore, if he's great, gets a new deal, so he's got something to fight for, which is another great incentive. So, yeah, he's not just here to pick up an easy wage. I mean, he did go to Turkey. I think he started off really well over there, and then he kind of just faded off in the end of his term there. So, yeah, not a single issue. And let's see if he can make a bit of difference this season.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Justin. I can't see him getting in the team for a while, but injuries happen and so on. I would like to keep him away from Hannibal on the training ground, though. I think that those two need to get on with each other rather than be competing for a midfield spot on the training ground every day. Greavesy, we're looking at other deals. There's obviously last night at Plymouth, a lot of media attention on Morgan Whittaker, as you pointed out. The cameras on him, but also in the papers this morning. He refused to play by all accounts, and he definitely wants out of Plymouth. And if you read most of the newspaper reports, they're saying there's two clubs in for him, Middlesbrough and Burnley. What do you think about Morgan Whittaker? Should we be pushing the boat out to bring him in?
I'm not convinced, I have to say. He's one of those players who he's had a good season last season in a relatively poor side. I'm just not sure he's what we need. You know what I mean? I don't think he's a number 9, is he, in the traditional sense? He's a bit more of a 9.5, 10, comes in from outside. And I don't know. I'm just, everything I read about him, look, he's clearly a talented lad, but I'm not convinced he's what we need. We were linked with him in the summer, perhaps before we got Fleming, and it was before we got Fleming because Fleming was literally last minute Larry. So yeah, I've yet to be convinced that he is your man to kind of drive us forward. I think, probably if we can get him at a decent price, then he's that kind of player who might have a sell-on value if he has a good season with us. But yeah, I mean, I'm always a bit like that with players who refuse to play and, don't turn up and let the teammates down. I know Chris has pointed out in our group, Tarky and Ben Gibson and other players who, perhaps are badly advised not to, go too far and, not go on strike as such, but make it clear that they don't want to play there. But yeah, not for me. I'm yet to be convinced, despite everyone telling me they think he's going to be brilliant for Burnley. I don't see any evidence of that. We need to get our creative play right for a player like that to thrive, and we're just doing that with Fleming. We've already got Foster, who we can shuffle about a bit if we want. That's what I'd be concentrating on rather than probably paying an inflated price in January for a player who, probably isn't training very much or is not giving his all in training if he is refusing to play and things like that. It could be 4 or 5 weeks before he's up to our required standard to even get in a match day squad. So, yeah, not for me. I'd leave that one where it is, I think.
My understanding is that, he hasn't been training as regular as you would expect for a player who's a first-team player and a star man at a team in the bottom of the Championship. There's also some talk of players on their way out as well, Chris. Ekdal and Dalquois both possibly on their way out of Turf Moor. Your feelings on that? I mean, Ekdal's a player who's, I would personally hope if Ekdal's leaving, it's just to get some game time and not for any other reason. Dalquois could perhaps fit in the other category and I wouldn't be losing any sleep. But what do you think?
Well, again, go back to Ekdal, who was signed in the January with promotion virtually signed and sealed. So, we signed him that window, Obafemi and Lyle Foster. Now, you're not signing them to get you over the line. You're signing them with the Premier League in mind. And then he abandons Ekdal, he abandons Obafemi, and, give Foster a run at things. So we've all seen that Ekdal is a very, comfortably a very good championship centre-half, Swedish international, good footballer, but with no idea whether he can play in the Premier League because he's never had a sustained run in it. So it's another one that company, almost threw under the bus, signed them how many other centre-halves, and, if all these centre-halves are ahead of him, do we need him? Honestly don't know, And Delcroix, well, we don't know. But again, he odd job man, wasn't he? Came in and played left back to a distinctly average standard. Had a decent game in the FA Cup at Spurs at centre half, I thought, but I won't bat an eyelid if he left. Just another company nightmare in the transfer market. But just going back to Whittaker, he's a game changer. He's a game winner. As Brentford found out, and I say players behave in strange ways sometimes when they're trying to force a move. As you mentioned, Tarky. We've all seen it. Tarky's behaviour. He's as professional as you get. You can hang your hat on him. But, even at times when he were trying to, work his way out of Burnley, there were, little situations when, when he was injured. Was he injured? Sort of talk of him turning down a captain's armband and things like this. And, it's, if players want out, they kick up a stink. Their agent will tell them to, I met pleasure meeting Ben Gibson, one of the nicest blokes you'll ever meet in football, and then he behaves like like an absolute clown in training and trying to force his way out. And we don't know if that's Whittaker's attitude most of the time. It seems to have been for the majority of January by the side of things. But I think he enhances our options in those wide areas. I think his return is fabulous so far this season, but last year was incredible, and put him in a side with better quality around him. I think he prospers, and he might be the one that gets you over the line. And the deals that everyone else is, Chef, you are pushing the boat out, aren't they? It's, talk of Akpom going to Sunderland and things like that, and we've got to match our rivals in this window, or we might fall behind them.
Interesting, yeah. Well, a variety of opinions there. One last topic to finish us off for this pod. Greavesy, you have noted with some interest reports that Ruud van Nistelrooy might be on his way out of Leicester City. Of course, a manager who many people wanted to see at Turf Moor over the summer. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think I pushed for him, didn't I? I think I kind of said, get out and get Ruud van Nistelrooy. But, he left his job in Holland, PSV. I think it was it PSV he was at? Yeah, it was PSV, wasn't it? He was at. He threw his toys out the pram last couple of games before the end of the season because he didn't get his own way. And the reports are that he's getting ready to resign from Leicester because he's been promised signings that haven't materialised and things like that. I mean, they've been on an absolutely dreadful run, haven't they? They've been on a losing streak after a relatively kind of, half-hearted kind of positive start to Ruud's reign there. He obviously did quite a good job in the caretaker manager role at United. But I just wonder whether we have dodged a little bit of a bullet. And, we think about that week that Scott Parker endured leading up to the Sunderland game where, half the squad apparently suddenly decided they wanted to leave. And, he looked a really stressed bloke, didn't he, in the post-match Sunderland interviews. But, he stuck with it because he's got that kind of bit of steel to him and things like that. I just wonder whether, it could have been one of the shortest reigns of a Burnley manager had Ruud van Nistelrooy lost those players in the same way as Parker had and things like that. So, yeah, interesting. He always comes across quite well, does Van Nistelrooy, but I just wonder if, he's one of those people who perhaps thought he might get a stab at the United job, didn't get a stab at the United job, took the Leicester job thinking it might enhance his reputation, and now things have gone to hell in a handcart. He's ready to bail out. I think it just proves that not every manager has to be this glamorous manager that I was calling for. I hold my hand up. Maybe a Parker who's a bit more straight down the line, a bit more kind of vanilla compared to some of the more exotic options we had, is the way to go. And that's, you think about it, Daniel Farker at Leeds, pretty straight guy. The guy at Sunderland seems a pretty classy guy. We said that last night, pretty straight guy. Wilder at Sheffield United is about as Yorkshire as they come. You know what I mean? There's not very many people getting, posters of Chris Wilder on their bedroom walls. So I don't know. Maybe this kind of, what do we call it?
I'm just picturing that, having a poster of Chris Wilder on your wall, scaring kids at night. Yeah.
Keep it about fireplace, don't it?
Only one man for the Leicester job. Only one man for the Leicester job. You know who that is. I'm not even saying his name.
We don't give the bingo cards a dab for that one this week.
Steve Cottrell.
Let's give the final word to our special guest, Liam. Liam, did we dodge a bullet with Van Nistelrooy, and who did you fancy in the summer?
Jesus, that feels like such a long time ago now. I think it was Cooper, I think it was Cooper that I wanted. And of course, he went to Leicester as well. And then I think he was in Ruud van Nistelrooy in the hype of it. But I also really liked, what's his name? Corberan at West Brom as well. Because I felt that he had probably was the best manager in the division at the time. So, yeah, they've all been sacked. Or have now left. So that's gone well. But it's just one of them. I mean, I would love to see Sean Dash at Leicester. I would love to see that. That'd be fun to see. But I'm happy with Scott Parker if we're a talk manager. I'm happy with the job he's done. He's done the job which I thought he was going to do. He'll stabilise things. He'll make us a lot more assured at the back. Christ, I mean, from last season, you would not have thought that we would have gone from that to 9 goals conceded, and we are now basically in February. It's obscene. So I give him massive credit for that. I think that he is definitely the man to get us up. Can he take us to the next level? That's what I want to see. But the Scott Parker is in a great job, and I mean, only 2 losses this year, and he's beat those lot down the road. So not much more can really ask from him, really.
No. Well, we could ask for a win on Monday against Leeds United, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the next episode of From the Be-All End. Until then, have a great weekend. Enjoy whatever football you want to watch until the big one on Monday. And up the Clarets.
How many times do I have to tell you? Stop moaning!
Not going anywhere. I've never been happier. Only to wake up in a whole different world.